street fighter versus sport fighter. Now, if you look at the science behind each, the street fighter will always be having an advantage over the sport fighter. I'm not talking on an individual level. I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about the science. The science of street fighting will always be more effective than the science of sport fighting, because street fighting incorporates everything that's in sport fighting and then some. And you can't beat that because there's no rules at all in street fighting. Okay? So sport fighting will have, they'll be like, okay, boxing, okay, you can punch, but you can't kick. And then you got kickboxing, says you can punch and kick, but you can't elbow and knee. Then you got the Muay Thai boxing, you could punch, kick, elbow, and knee, but you can't do, you can't choke people. Alright, and then they keep going with it, with the cage fighting, you could kick, punch, elbow, knee, you could choke people. You could do certain arm locks, but you can't do this and that. Street fighting is just everything. Okay, you could punch, kick, you could chop, you could throw, you could slam, you could drop them on their head, you could choke, you could break their bones, you could gouge their eyes, you could scratch them, you could bite them, you could claw them, you could spit on them, you could yell at them, you could use your gun, you could use your knife, you could use your sword, you could use your car to run them over, you could throw them into the river, you could smash their head against the brick wall, you could use this glass bottle and stab them with the glass bottle, break the glass bottle on their head and then stab them with it afterwards. You could get your friends and you could have them jump in to help you out and stomp on them. You could do whatever you want to do. Street fighting is just basically like absolutely no holds barred. Like, you could do whatever you want to do. You could gather up your friends and just come and just have a Royal Rumble, whatever they want to call it. You could use an AK-47 if you got one. You could use bombs if you got them. You could just do whatever you want to do. So the science of street fighting, the science of like real violence, no sport fighting will ever be more effective. Now, it is what it is. Now, the people that truly want to learn survival methods will have to utilize, they would have to study the science of street fighting. And essentially, that's what Bruce was studying and researching, and that's what he was expressing in his way. And that's what I studied, and that's what I researched, and that's what I trained for. But you will not find that often anywhere out there, because most places are concentrated on some sport. It comes from a martial art into a martial sport. Even Taekwondo is very commercialized, but they have their own tournaments that they prepare for. That's why there's Taekwondo in the Olympics. And a lot of times you go into Taekwondo school, they're preparing you for Olympic style sparring. That's, Olympic style Taekwondo sparring. That's not street combat. That's just sparring to prepare for the Olympics. You study, wrestling. They're just training you for the, to maybe get into the Olympics of wrestling, or trying to make it to the college wrestling team. You're revolving your training around the rules of that mat. Boxing, you're just training to make to the Golden Gloves, to training to try to make it professionally as a boxer, to get paid to box, to get paid to entertain people. When you train in pro wrestling, you're training to entertain people. You're training to get people to want to pay to watch you wrestle and make these choreographed fight scenes or whatever the case may be. The kickboxing, the Thai boxing, it's all for entertainment. All these karate schools, they're fighting they have their own tournaments. They got their own karate point sparring tournaments, so they'll be training people to prepare for those point sparring tournaments. or those karate people will enter into, you know, they want to do the whole cage fighting, so they prepare for the cage fighting. So rarely will you ever find any school that really focuses on street survival combat, you know, because there's no money in that. Because for street survival combat, there's no competitions there. There's no, you know, recognition. There's no, like, trophies. There's no money to win. It's just preparing for everyday, you know, potential threats out there in the streets. And you don't really find that out there. But that's the reality, you know, of what is truly effective, is that you study everything, you know, that can happen, that could potentially happen on the streets. You study it and you learn to survive it. You know, even like the mass murders and the mass shootings, that's part of the survival training for people that want to survive on the streets. You know, or just like robberies and burglaries and kidnappings and rapes and, you know, preparing against gangbangers, you know, or like just people living in a rough neighborhood, preparing for that, you know, for the people in that neighborhood and what they might do to you. You know, prepare. Another thing that other people don't realize and think about also is preparing for retaliation. You know, I mean, this is a true story that Sidai Bang, you know, mentioned to me a few times. You know, he had a friend, older guy who's a boxer, and then he got in an altercation with somebody over a parking spot, a younger guy, maybe like 19 years old, and then they got in an altercation, the younger guy with his friends, and then the older guy, you know, Bang's friend, they got in an altercation with the 19-year-old, and then he just beat him down, you know, boxed him and just beat him up in front of his friends. The dude couldn't handle it. So Bang's friend goes up into the barbershop, getting his hair cut. 19-year-old comes back with a gun and just blasts him away. So Bang's friend ended up dying. 19-year-old just leaves the country. You know, so preparing for retaliation. You understand? I mean, like, people that'll come after you. You might beat them today, but tomorrow they're gonna come and kill you. You know what I mean? That's how it is on the streets. You know what I'm saying? Preparing for, you know, what might happen if you kill somebody for self-defense, and preparing for, you know, dealing with the police, dealing with the courts, dealing with the judge and the jury, and getting your lawyer. You know, I mean, it's just like a lot of things. You know, preparing for domestic violence. You know, if you get into it with your girlfriend or your wife or your children or whoever, preparing for that and how to handle that situation. You know, I mean, there's a lot of things to prepare for in the real world, on the streets, in real life. That's very different, extremely different than any of this combat sport. And that's something that you rarely will ever find out there. But that's what I trained in. You know what I'm saying? And that's essentially what Bruce was training in as well. The tactics of real street fighting, the science behind street fighting.